My hands were shaking with rage the night she stood on my porch jangling a ring of cheap hardware store keys, trying one after another in my front door like she owned the place. When I told her to back off, she called 911 on me, claiming I was the problem. What she didn't know was that the deputy rolling up that night was my son, and he was about to end her entire power trip. I should back up a little. My name's Garrett Porter. I'm a retired Boeing engineer, 67 years old, and I moved into Oak Ridge Estates after my wife Margaret passed. I was building a memorial garden for her, trying to find peace. The neighborhood looked nice, too nice actually. Identical beige fences matching mailboxes, flower beds lined with the same white stones. At first I thought, wow, these people really care about their lawns. Later I realized it was something else entirely. The first time I met her was on a chilly February morning. I was bent over adjusting sprinklers when I heard the sound of clicking heels behind me. Papers rustling that sharp rhythm of someone who thinks they're in charge. I looked up and saw her marching toward me like she was about to deliver a corporate presentation. Business suit, shiny badge pinned to her jacket leather portfolio under her arm. "Good morning, you must be Mr. Porter. I'm Courtney Mitchell, your Community Standards Director here at Oak Ridge." Her smile could have powered a small city, too perfect, too rehearsed. She opened the portfolio like she was showing me FBI credentials. Inside was a thick manual glossy pages, color photos, official-looking charts. She said I had inherited compliance issues from the previous owner. $350 in unpaid assessments, $250 every month moving forward. She also mentioned quarterly safety inspections done with her master keys. And when she tapped the shiny ring of 10 keys on her hip, I swear my stomach dropped. I've read enough technical documentation in my career to spot inconsistencies. That manual was full of them. Different fonts, bogus legal citations, and words like Community Covenant Article 12 that didn't exist anywhere in municipal code. So I started asking basic questions. Where are the incorporation documents? Who are the board members? When was this HOA established? Her answers were pure smoke. All filed at the county level, procedures are well established, never once producing an actual document. That same evening, my neighbor Betty Harper, a 72-year-old retired librarian, knocked on my door. She held up her phone with trembling hands. "Mr. Porter, you need to see this." She had months of recordings Courtney harassing families, slapping fake notices on doors, coaching a handyman to measure fences, and call out violations. One poor woman had finally sold her house just to get away from her. Betty had documented it all. I felt like I'd stumbled into some Twilight Zone episode. This wasn't a quirky HOA. This was fraud. A well-polished scam designed to intimidate homeowners into paying up and conforming. But when you're new in a neighborhood, you don't want to be the troublemaker. Part of me thought maybe I should just go along. That weakness cost me. The next week, Courtney posted a fresh violation on my door fence, too. Tall mulch, the wrong color mailbox, non-compliant. The paperwork looked so official I actually doubted my own trip to City Hall, where the clerk had told me flat out Oak Ridge Estates has no registered HOA. I still caved. I handed Courtney $250 in cash, thinking it would buy peace while I gathered more evidence. That was my mistake. Because in the fine print of her receipt she'd slipped an authorization for quarterly inspections. I had just given her written permission to walk into my property. The very next day she showed up with a local handyman named Jake. He looked miserable unloading measuring equipment like he was reporting for jury duty. Courtney smiled that professional smile and said, "Your monthly payment authorizes us to inspect your backyard and garage for compliance." Jake started calling out measurements, but it didn't sound like fence inspections. He was noting foundation access points, electrical panels, security vulnerabilities. It hit me like a brick this wasn't compliance. This was surveillance. Neighbors watched me resist, and suddenly I was the problem. One woman told me I was hurting everyone's property values. Another man admitted he'd already paid $17.50 over 7 months just to avoid conflict. The social pressure was intense. And Courtney. She called my house later in a concerned tone, suggesting I might be confused after retirement, maybe suffering age-related misunderstandings. She was gaslighting me, trying to make me doubt my own sanity. And I did doubt myself. I sat at my kitchen table staring at her fake manuals, wondering if maybe I was overreacting, if fighting her was worth it. Margaret was gone. I was tired, and for a moment I thought, screw it, just pay the damn fees. But then my son Daniel texted back after I showed him the documents. "Dad, this is fraud. Don't let anyone in. Document everything. I've got your back." That snapped me out of it. From that point, I wasn't just angry, I was determined. Betty gave me more recordings, including one where Courtney coached Jake to fabricate violations. And when I caught Courtney on my security camera at midnight testing her keys on my back gate, I knew she was escalating. She even delivered an ultimatum: comply within 48 hours, or I'll invoke emergency safety procedures. Emergency procedures for a mailbox. It was absurd but dangerous. The night of her deadline, the whole cul-de-sac was buzzing. Neighbors were on porches, phones ready. Betty was at her window with her iPhone. Rick Coleman stood arms crossed on his lawn. Even Susan Mills, the one who always defended Courtney, looked uneasy. At exactly 7, Courtney strode down the sidewalk like a queen entering her court. Clipboard in hand, badge, glinting keyring catching the evening light. She raised her voice so everyone could hear. "Mr. Porter, under Community Covenant Article 12, I have master key access for mandatory safety inspection." She sounded confident, commanding. 8 months of unchecked power had made her believe no one would ever call her bluff. I stayed just inside my doorway. "Courtney, you're attempting criminal trespass under Texas Penal Code 30.02. Municipal records show there's no HOA here, you have no authority, and you're being recorded." Her smile twitched. She waved the clipboard like a wand. "Obstruction of emergency safety procedures endangers community welfare." Empty words, but she said them like gospel. Then she picked the first key off her ring and slid it into my lock. Nothing. Second key, nothing. Third, nothing. By the 5th, sweat beaded on her forehead. By the 10th, she was jamming the metal in frustration, and the whole neighborhood was watching her professional mask crack wide open. Betty shouted from her window, "Those keys never worked on anyone's house. She's been lying for months." Rick exploded, waving receipts. $17.50 she stole from me. Phones were up everywhere, capturing Courtney's empire collapsing in real time. That's when she lost it. She hurled the key ring at my door, scattering fake documents across the driveway. Then she pulled out her phone and dialed 911, screaming emergency community standards director under attack by a mob. Elderly resident unstable. The audacity was jaw-dropping. She was weaponizing the police to save her scam. Minutes later, sirens echoed down the street. Courtney straightened her jacket, trying to reclaim composure, convinced her salvation had arrived. The patrol car stopped in front of my house, and out stepped my son Daniel in full sheriff's deputy uniform. I stepped outside just enough to say calm as I could, "Hi, son. Thanks for coming so quick." The silence was electric. You could hear a pin drop. Then Betty yelled, "His son's the sheriff." Laughter, cheers, gasps. Neighbors realized Courtney had just called the cops on the sheriff's own father. Courtney's face drained of color. She stammered, No, this is impossible. He's just confused. This is a setup." Then she lunged at me, screaming about conspiracies. Daniel moved fast, restraining her with professional ease. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for assault, criminal trespass, impersonation of a public servant, and filing a false report." The sight of her being cuffed, fake badge, dangling papers fluttering like trash in the wind, was the perfect ending. 8 months of intimidation gone in seconds, undone by the truth by cameras and by one fatal mistake, thinking no one would ever stand up to her. And that's the lesson right there. Fake authority only works if you let it.